Hi, welcome to Jbrc Race Cars. I'm Steve, and today what I'm going to talk to you about is a brake line kit for your race car. Uh, Brakes being a very important part of the car. Uh, we carry brake brands from Lamb Brake Components, Strange Engineering, Mark Williams, and Willwood. All of them have an important factor that when they come from the master cylinder, the heart or the fluid pump that's located on the car, you got to have a good brake line delivery system to deliver the fluid from the master cylinder to the calipers of the brake kit. And we feel like we have one of the top, if not the top, system on the market. We've been doing this a long time, and many years ago, people would say, "How do you do that?" And again, this was an early stage of one of our first parts components that we started making available to the do-it-yourselfer. Our brake line kit starts out with coming with a 25-foot coil of just 3/16 steel galvanized line, similar to the line that you'd use in an auto parts store, but again, a coiled line that you can run it to the length and the bulkhead fittings and areas that you need to on the race car without having any breaks in the line or anything like that. Keep the line as long as possible with as minimal amount of connections. The brake line kit itself comes with an instruction sheet. The standard brake line kit, besides having the 25-foot coil of steel line, has 6 foot of the number 3 Teflon line for making your soft lines to go from the bulkhead points on the chassis to the calipers. The fittings that come with this type of line setup are the ones that have to be cut to length and installed. Here's a sample of straight fitting apart. So you got your collar, the fitting itself, and then the olive, as they call it, that seals the fitting. And these, that way you can cut the brake lines to the length desired that you need to come from your bulkhead point out to the calipers, especially on the front wheel steering, so that you have the correct length, as well as the rear lines running so that as the housing travels through motion of movement or up and down, the line will go along with it. We don't run the brake line on the axle housings the way earlier automobiles were done. The brake line, the hard line, stays on the chassis of the car itself. In starting, one of the real important parts is a tab that can be welded to the chassis itself on the 4 mounting points of where your bulkhead fittings are going to be at both the corners of the left and right front wheel and left and rear wheel. So the kit comes with 4 weld-on tabs. The standard kit comes with all aluminum black anodized bulkhead fittings to bolt into the bulkhead. As the line is routed from the master cylinder to the bulkhead fittings, we provide a nice simple little black cable clamp. These can be pop riveted to the chassis itself and hold the brake line to the frame of the car. And then again, you'd go back to your soft lines running from the bulkhead fittings out to the 4 points on the caliper. All of this comes in a kit, like I said, with instructions. Some upgrades to the kit would be if you wanted to go from the 3/16 galvanized line, we have 3/16 stainless steel line. We use stainless steel lines primarily on all of our cars that are in-house manufactured for our customers. Another feature that's taken place in the past few years where people weren't concerned so much about the weight and more the performance or the benefits of using an aluminum fitting was going to steel bulkhead fittings. A little bit of weight difference, but really nice and really important when you use the stainless steel line because of the hardness of the line itself. We use all steel bulkhead fittings for the stainless steel line. And then another feature that came along, not only with brake lines, but with many of the hoses that we're able to build in our shop, is the capability, instead of having to spend the time assembling the lines, is the pre-assembled lines are the lines that use a crimp style fitting rather than a replacement number 3 fitting that you would use to build the hose. These are pre-made lines either with straight or 90-degree hose ends. Make for a real nice line to go from the bulkhead out to your points on your caliper. When it comes to the tools to doing or building any of this on your car, we can help you with all that too. You started with a coil of line, so one of the very first and most important tools is to have a nice 3/16 tubing bender. This bender does a beautiful job. The guys use them every day in the shop, bending any of the brake lines that we do on the cars, whether it be the galvanized or the stainless steel line. You can handhold this to a point on the car. You can mount this in a vise, bring your line to it. Just a really great tool for getting real nice tight radiuses and bending a nice set of brake lines to fit nice and tight to the chassis of the car. Then with these being AN fittings and not the typical automotive brake fittings where they're a double flare, a 37-degree flare is required on the hard line to seat to the AN fittings. Again, very nice tool that we use in the shop, handheld or can be gripped in a vise. And you put your line in here and this does the perfect 37-degree flare that you'll need for getting a nice seal of your steel line to your AN fitting. And the last tool sitting here on the table would be, if you were not going with the pre-assembled line and anybody's ever put the Teflon steel braided lines together themselves with the reusable fittings, which is still a good way to go, you have to separate that braid from the outer core of the steel when you put the olive in there to assemble the hose in and put it together. This is a braid spreader that goes down on to the number 3 Teflon line, pushes the steel braid away from the Teflon, and allows a perfect seal for the olive to seal when assembling the fittings. So again, any of the tools that are needed, anything to do with the balance of the brake system from the master cylinder to the master cylinder mount to the brakes themselves, as I mentioned, to the brands that we carry, we can give you the advice and the help that you need to plumb a perfect brake line system on your car. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call or reach out to us on the web. We're always here to give you a hand and help.